So you pull on your brakes and they go straight to the bars and they're no longer helping you pull up on a dime like they used to before. Well, you've come to the right place. In this video, I am going to show you how to adjust the brakes, along with also understanding how the brakes work. So that way you have a better understanding how the brakes work so you can get the best possible performance out of your brakes. So I'm going to take one of these calipers off to show you, but while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you the tools you need. So these are the tools you'll need. Yeah, not even kidding. That is all the tools you need. Just a simple set of Allen keys. If you have those already, fantastic, you're already on a roll. If you don't, definitely go down to your local hardware store or automotive parts store and get yourself a set of these Allen keys. They're definitely worth actually keeping in your scooter bag when you're going for a ride so you can do any adjustments on the fly. Alright guys, so we've got the caliper off. So this is pretty much the side that you see. So here we have where the cable would usually come through, and this would push this little arm up. And then inside of here, which hopefully I'm showing you guys now, this arm, when it gets pulled, it's pushing this side here across to that way. So when a disc, like we have here, is sitting inside, it essentially gets pinched from this side of the caliper across. On top, it's coming across and it's essentially just pushing that across. So the caliper only pushes from one side, and this side here on the left hand side actually stays stationary. So to make this work really, really well, this whole unit, we basically have to get it as close to our inside disc, which if we're looking at it from this side again, remember this is where the cable sits and goes through this little eyelet up the top here, and it pulls like that. So now that we've got that out of the way, this side stays stationary. So we want this side to be adjusted as close as we possibly can, closer to the disc when it's sitting inside of that little slot inside there. So what we want to do is on the back of this caliper here, we have this big round one, and that's going to be our adjustment to pull the brake pad in closer to this side, because both pads do wear. And on the top side of it, you'll see a tiny little Allen key right there, guys. So you just see it right there, just on the top, that little tiny hole. That is actually an Allen key. You do need to basically, so we want to undo this one first, that tiny little one at the top. So we're going to undo that one first. This will allow us to then move this around and actually make our adjustment in forwards. And then once we have got to the desired spacing, we then lock that tiny little one in place, which stops this from moving. It's as simple as that, guys. We don't actually want to mess around with this arm too much, or where the actual cable runs through the front part here. So we don't want to adjust too much on this. We don't want to adjust too much on this, because realistically you shouldn't have to. Realistically, we shouldn't have to be, or shouldn't be adjusting this too much. We just need to basically focus on actually adjusting the back side of the caliper and getting the center of the brake as close as we possibly can. So what we're going to do is, this is a really simple unit. Your brakes might look a little different to this one. It might have like little fins at the top, or be red. Most of them are red or black, but just for this, basically the structure of this video, we're going to be basing it around this one, which is off a Dragon Raptor, as you can see behind us there. But basically they all run the same. Some of them don't have this little pin at the top. Some of them actually just have magnets inside, so you literally put your little pad in there and they're just magnetized to the inside of here. So this caliper is in desperate need of an adjustment. So the way we want to do this as well is have this arm relaxed as it is. So this is as far back as it possibly can, which is perfect for our first initial kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on the back side of the scooter exactly what we're looking at here. So here we have the brake. You can see here that little arm is actually really close to hitting that white part here, which is not what you want. But what we're going to do is we are going to wind off everything. So all of these for your first part of the brake is always the best thing to do is wind this all the way forward. So we can see here we've already done that, so there's a bit of thread hanging out. When I say by wind by forward, some people like to adjust them like that and crank these back so this thread goes in, which pulls a little bit on this arm, so we do have to adjust this quite a fair bit. But basically, if you've made any adjustments on this part to try and tighten up the brakes, we want to go the opposite of that. So we want to bring it all the way back to basically so there's no adjustment at all. And that also goes for up on the bars as well. So up on the bars here as well, guys, if you have adjusted up here, there's that little spin ring thing that everyone plays with. You want to adjust that all the way back to stock so it's all the way in and not out. And that goes for both sides because we will be fixing and adjusting both sides to this. So we'll wind this one back. So as you can see here, this little locking ring here, we just need to move him all the way back to stock. So wind him all the way back. And basically, then we want to twist that in. Now this will make this line very loose. So you can see here we've got quite a fair bit of slack. This is when our Allen keys are going to come in handy, because we're going to try and adjust everything back to basically stock. And for you following at home, if you are using the Allen keys and you want to know what size it is, it's the size 5 mil. We're just going to loosen this top part off, and this arm should actually come back. There we go. And we just want it to go into its relaxed position, which it's right there. And we just want to pull a little bit of slack off there, because any slack that's in the line that goes through the scooter, we just want to pull that out. This can also be used in the final adjustments for these little things, but for now, we want as much cable as possible. There you go. Now, everything on the rear brake has been wound back. You need to do this exact process on the front as well. Now it's really hard to see, guys, but you can see just the gap in here. We do have a bit of a gap between the disc, which I'm hoping my hands underneath can show. Yeah, there you go. So you can see the gap. We can see that both the brake pads need to be adjusted, and let's just do that right now. That same 5 mil spanner that we had before, we're just going to undo these two here, which will release the caliper straight out. A lot of people get it confused with taking the Allen key and taking it out from here. That is actually the movement for the caliper for in and out. So we actually don't want to touch them too much. But for now, we can clearly see over the top there, we do need to make them a lot closer. So for that, we do need to get to that back part of the caliper, which I showed you in the first start of the video. So let's just get the Allen key off. So now we've got those two nuts off, we can now remove the caliper straight off, and we can see, just like the front one, we have quite a big gap in here. We have a massive gap in there. So what we need to do is, like I showed you before, we've got that tiny little Allen key there, and when we're following at home, it is a 2 mil. So if you need that, it's a 2 mil. Now we just want to get in there and just simply loosen it off a little bit. It doesn't have to come all the way out. Just want to loosen that off. So we can adjust this one here. Hopefully you guys can see in there, as I turn this forward, the bigger gap we got, and it's now a lot closer to that front one, because remember the front one is the only one on a cable brake that moves. So when we move this, we can clearly see that that's going in and out. So we want to try and get this one as close to the front one as possible. I like to eye these off a little bit, because you can make them, you can kind of see how thick the disc is when you're sitting over the top of it, so you can kind of eye off the amount of distance that you kind of need. These pads will need to be replaced eventually, but they actually aren't looking too bad. They just need a proper solid adjustment. So yeah, let's see how that sits over the top of the caliper, over the disc. Now if you find that it doesn't go over it, it probably needs to be wound back a little bit. So for me, I've wound it in way too far. I'm just gonna slowly go back until we get a nice snug fit. Another one too is, it would be a good idea now to actually loosen these off, because we do need these now loose. So again, the ones we just did are these two little top parts, and as you can see here, this just freely moves like that, which helps us, as you can probably see the Allen keys moving about there like that. This just helps us get our final adjustment on the caliper, so we can move the caliper both in and out. So we're just going to move that out of the way like that, so we have a better area to move this around, so it's not so close to our adjustment spot like it was like that. So we're just going to double check. So we just need to slide down past this little mount here, and we just want to make sure that we definitely got the right. So yeah, still need to adjust it out a little bit further. Just trying to get it to have that perfect gap. There we go, that is pretty bloody close. And if you really want to, you can manipulate the caliper and just move the disc with your hand, just being very careful not to put your fingers in between the disc here, because you don't want that to get chomped up by the disc, because it will hurt. We can probably actually go, this is a very tedious task. You will be going back and forth and slightly adjusting it, guys, so do take your time, but it will eventually work. So you just need to get the perfect amount of spacing there. So that, to me, feels very close to where we need, and we can do our small fine adjustments with these parts as well as the ones up on the bars. So for me, I'm happy with that. I'm now going to mount our caliper back up. Do make sure, don't force these in, otherwise you will thread them. They are only alloy, so, and these are steel. So guys, as you can probably see here, I've now just tightened those up. Remember, all this that I'm showing you, you just basically mimic on the front. It is no different. Now, as you can probably tell, this caliper can now freely move around both front, back, sideways, as you can probably see here. So this is the adjustment process. This part is very difficult. You won't get it straight away, but if you peer through the top part here, which we can see here, you just peer through this little tiny part, you can see where the disc is, and you can see where the caliper kind of wants to sit. So what we want to do first is just take as much slack out of this moving around as possible. So that's getting pretty close. We just want to go a little bit closer on the back as well, but not tight. We want to be able to move this around back and forth and try and get this caliper nice and straight. And the easiest way to find out if you have is just by moving. See, I haven't got that straight. There's where it's pretty much wanting to be. So what we can do is we just do slowly tighten them bit by bit, making sure that the calipers are moved. I've just seen the caliper move, and if you've got a bent disc, it'll also do it as well. So now I can't even move it doesn't freely move, so we just open that up again, ever so slightly, pull that away. This is a very tedious part of the job. We've got a very small amount there. We just want to go back and forth, just ever so slightly tightening. We have a very small rub there, but that'll pretty much go away within your first couple of breaks, so don't stress about that too much. What we do want to make sure is these are tight, otherwise if you brake really hard, this caliper will move on its own, and it'll be constantly making noises and rubbing and creating all sorts of chaos. So there we go. It's basically not even really touching. There we go, guys. Boom. Bit of adjustment. Obviously this is moving quite a fair bit, but we want to take that ever so bit of slight movement out. So that's when we adjust this back a little bit. Remember, we haven't put new pads in this, we're just using the old pads, so sometimes once you put fresh pads in, you won't even need to adjust this, but this is simply for someone that has just put fresh pads in, but want a little bit, like they've just put them in and their brakes have gone. This is how to adjust it. So this is a very used brake pad, and we're really trying to ask the best from it with very little life that it has. So that's taken most of the slack out. we're not rubbing, but we have a very, very well working brake caliper. So I reckon the small adjustment on here should be fine. Not making any tinging noises you can hear. Very, very slight. Hopefully the microphone picks that up. So that's where we want to sit. So, and that feels so much better than what it was. So barely moving. Of course, when you slowly pull on it, you're going to have a bit of rub like that. So that's where we want to be. And that is perfect. Of course, you can go up to the bars and make that slight bit more adjustment so you can really pull that little bit of slack out. But it is very hard to get the slack out of cable brakes. It is very finicky and it'll take you a long time. If that's the kind of feel that you want, then yeah, you can definitely go all out. And once we have adjusted these guys, remember to lock that Allen key up that's at the top and the back there that's holding that pin from moving, because we have now done. That's pretty much it. We're finished. Something I always check too, guys, is I just go over everything, make sure everything is still tight. This here, it doesn't have those end parts. You've probably seen it, they fray. When they fray, the best thing I can possibly tell you to do is, if you, probably not tape, but if you have heat shrink for wiring, I would try and tighten that up as best you possibly can if it's already frayed out and gone nuts. Or you can go a little bit of tape to try and get it as tight as it possibly can, and then slide over a bit of heat shrink, and then just heat shrink it. So then that way it stops you from, obviously when your leg goes past here, it'll flick onto that and probably cut you. So that's my tip for if you have any frayed wires. So guys, I really hope this video has helped you guys out adjusting your brakes. Seems difficult at the first, but once you get your head around it, it's actually really simple, especially the aligning of the two bolts. So the two top ones that usually sit on the top, these two you don't want to touch. If you ever need to take the caliper off for whatever reason, like a tire change, try to undo these ones down the bottom here, not the ones sitting on top, because that is your caliper adjustment. You really want to try and minimize touching those. If you do need to take it off, you just bolt the ones from the side that face out towards the scooter, not the ones sitting on top that go up towards the bars. So yeah, hope that helped you guys out. If it has, please definitely think about subscribing and liking the video, and I hope to see you all in the future with working brakes. So we'll see you then. Have a good ride, wear your helmet, full face helmet, and we'll see you all in the next video. Next, let's do some hydraulic brakes.